a young man's game in terms of record deals. And everybody likes to keep you on the shelf where you belong, and my shelf has always been Atheist. And so I think that there's always that also, if they're not really listening to the music, then they're thinking, why do we need another Atheist, or this guy, he's been around, he's been known for this kind of music for a while, not expecting the record that I think I delivered.
Greetings, Legion, and welcome to episode 198 of Into the Necrosphere. This week, the legendary Kelly Shaefer returns to the podcast to talk us through a track-by-track analysis of Outside the Spiral, the debut record by his new band, Till the Dirt. We also got the lowdown on what the future holds for Atheist. Kelly gave me his views on the music industry in 2023. We chopped it up about life and much, much more. It's coming your way very shortly, but first, Hebephrenique is an Australian band that has just been picked up by our friends in Gutter Prince Cabal. They are about to release an EP called Non Compos Mentis, and for the first time ever, you are about to enjoy their brand new single. This is Homicidal Ambivalence. That was Homicidal Ambivalence by Hebephrenique off their forthcoming EP, Non Compos Mentis. It will be released by Gutter Prince Cabal on Halloween, October the 31st, so make sure that you check it out. Show Gutter Prince Cabal some love and support, and head over to the Hebephrenique Bandcamp. I will post a link to their Bandcamp in the description to the podcast. And massive thank you to both band and label for letting us host yet another world premiere. My friends, if you're new to the podcast and you enjoy what you're hearing so far, then do me one little favor. Grab the closest folding chair and beat the subscribe button on your platform of choice until it begs you for mercy. Follow me on Instagram, X, and Facebook, and if you really want to show your love and support to the podcast, then head over to the Into the Necrosphere Teespring store and hand over a few of your hard-earned ducats in exchange for one or more of the quality items on offer there, including t-shirts, hoodies, caps, etc. Also follow my fellow horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse. Every Monday, Brandon Legion brings you Horrible 666. Every Tuesday, yours truly casts hexes and slays poses on Into the Necrosphere. My guest next week is the mighty Matt Prizzo of Sick, Conspiracy X, and Spells of Torment. And then the week after, it's episode 200. Many of you are guessing who my guest is going to be. I am revealing absolutely nothing, save to say once again that when it happens, it is going to be one of the biggest episodes in this podcast's history. On a Wednesday, my good friend Mike Hill brings you a sinister smorgasbord of basically any subject, any guest he's interested in speaking to with his long-running podcast, Everything Went Black. He has incidentally just dropped a really cool EP with a side project of his called Begotten Sons. The EP is called Portraits of Desolation. We'll play some of it next week, but if you are too impatient in the meantime, then you can go to Bandcamp and check it out. But do check out Everything Went Black. Also, make sure that you return on a Thursday for Necromaniacs, one of my favorite podcasts of the week. Mike Hill returns for that one, and he presents it alongside his co-hosts, Sheriff Mike Scandado and Professor Jeff Kashid. And then on a Sunday, the Reverend Cole Haikara brings you a deep dive into the weird, the arcane, and the esoteric with his podcast, Soul Knox. And then skulking in the shadows is our good friend Cheyenne, who intermittently drops his podcast, Iblis Manifestations, when you least expect it. There is a episode upcoming featuring Old Jackson, and I can honestly say that it was one of the most transparent conversations I think I've ever had with somebody, period. So make sure that you check it out when it drops. It's unmissable, in my opinion. Speaking of Cheyenne, when Kelly and I are done, you need to stick around because we're going to be talking about Cheyenne's band, Trivax. We're also going to be talking about the new record by Primordial, How It Ends. And then it is on to the weekly news rant, where singles by the likes of Resin Tomb, Neck Cemetery, Blood Red Throne, Decembre Noir, Bewitcher, and others will be rounded up for judgment. Right now, though, sit back and enjoy as I welcome back to the show Kelly Shaefer of Till the Dirt and Atheist. So I'm going to raise a Sahi to you first and foremost to say congratulations on getting Till the Dirt signed. That was a pretty lengthy process. I mean, I remember when you were on the podcast the last time, I kind of got probably a level of despondency from you as to, I guess, dealing with the music industry or trying to get this new band off the ground. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. I think that, especially at 54 years old, you know what I mean? I'm not 24, so the world, it's a young man's game in terms of record deals. And, everybody likes to keep you on the shelf where you belong. And my shelf has always been Atheist. And so I think that, there's always that also, if they're not really listening to the music, then they're thinking, why do we need another Atheist, or, this guy, he's been around, he's been known for this kind of music for a while, not expecting the record that I think I delivered. And because, Till the Dirt is completely different. So I think that, it was pretty frustrating. I mean, I was prepared for it. I really didn't expect much. I wanted people to be able to hear the record. So obviously, I just wanted it to be out there. Wasn't like looking for money or anything like that. I just really wanted it to be out there, but I got really, really lucky. Some things fell in place where, you know, an old and dear friend, Monty Connor, who now is at Nuclear Blast and was at Roadrunner for years and signed all of your favorite death metal bands. And, you know, it's just a legend in the business and really took a chance on me, man. And it's, you know, it's kind of paying off. It's cool. You know, it's, because I think people are realizing now it's been out for a couple of weeks and they're, you know, the one thing about it that's funny and that, you know, we didn't get a chance to talk about, you and I, before I wasn't prepared for, was the polarizing nature of it. Mm-hmm. So people either really hate it or they love it, you know, so there's really no middle ground on it, which is good. I think that you have to be sort of, you have to make reactionary music, I think, in order to really kind of stay with the tide, you know, and, so people are just confused by all the different vocal things, and you know, everyone's they really wanted to hear another Atheist thing. You know, I think some people, the ones that have the sort of you know, anger about it, but primarily it's been really tremendous and it's exciting.
Well, I was going to say, you know, Till the Dirt, when I first heard the record, which, you know, I'd heard it a while ago. I think when we first started, you started sending me some tracks. Exactly, but the you know, it is an album, and you know, all of the songs really, you know, almost, you know, I don't know whether it was intentional, but it really goes out of its way not to sound like Atheist. You know, you really weren't repeating yourself here. If you know, to the lay person or even somebody who's kind of vaguely familiar with your music, if they didn't know that was you, they probably wouldn't put two and two together and realize that. So I'm not surprised that some folks had you know, quite a knee-jerk response to it. Rather than necessarily give the record a you know, a chance on its own merits.
Yeah, I mean, and that was another thing. I even told Nuclear Blast, I was like, listen, I would love it if we never even mentioned Atheist. I would like this just to come out, and they were like, oh, are you crazy? You know, you can't do that. You've got to, you know, from a marketing standpoint, you have to mention Atheist. I'm like, why? I really wanted to come at everybody really cold, and just, you know, to get a, because I mean, it's just so hard to, the internet has created just where everybody's a critic, you know, and it's so different than back in the 90s making records in late 80s and 90s. Just and it's been even since 2010, since I did Jupiter with Atheist, since I've done a record. So it's been 13 years, and even that time from 2010 to now is so different. I mean, TikTok and fucking instant opinions, like, you know, like wildfire on the internet. And so, you know, I have to be really careful, because I mean, they're like, you know, music is like my children. So watching people just completely trash my children is tough. And, but you know, I mean, it's part of the game though, you know, I mean, you have to, you know, but I've come to terms with the fact that as long as people either hate it or love it, I'm cool with it, you know, because nothing worse than being in the middle, you know, where people are like, you know, it's whatever, you know, just another record. I know that it's like, definitely
it's
not
the worst thing that could have greeted it is indifference, because you know, we all have albums that, you know, we can probably point to in our history where you heard the album for the first time and you went, fuck it, that sucks, and then like 3-4 months later you're playing it and you're like, I don't know why, but for some bizarre reason today it's just clicking. And you're not going to do that to something that you feel completely indifferent over, right? So I think it's exactly as you say. I think as long as they feel something for it, maybe some of them are going to come around later on.
Mission accomplished, you know. I mean, I look at all the, you know, I looked back on like Led Zeppelin reviews, you know, and if you go back and you read those original reviews for Led Zeppelin, they're horrible, and that just kind of filled me with joy, you know. So that helps me kind of deal with it, you know. When I see all of my favorite bands and their early reviews, it's really interesting about the internet. You can go back and kind of, you know, read those articles, and it's just, I saw something about Metallica's Ride the Lightning when it first came out. Just this horrible review of Ride the Lightning. Just, I mean, and think of it, you know, it's such a brilliant record. It's one of my favorites. You know, if I went to an island, that would be a contender for a record that I would take. So I was just stunned reading this old, you know, that guy must feel so stupid now, you know, like, because the review is just way off base, just, you know. And I think a lot of times people review records these days, and they, you know, they've got to listen to 10 records that week, and then they got to write reviews for each one. And I think that people don't spend enough time listening before they spew out all of their feelings, and they don't realize that, a lot of people will instantaneously go, "Oh, dude from Atheist has a new band. It's this guy says it's sucks. It doesn't sound like Atheist. I'm not going to listen to it." You know what I mean? It's just that quick people make that decision. So anyway, at the end of the day, man, I just like making music and doing what I do, man. I'm lucky to be able to do it. I'm super grateful to Nuclear Blast for taking a chance on something really, outside the box, outside the spiral, so to speak.
Well, this is something I thought was particularly interesting about reading some of the reviews. You would feel like in 2023 people have moved beyond trying to put a band in a particular box, and I definitely got the impression from quite a lot of reviews, without naming names, that a lot of people that were reviewing it didn't quite know what it was. They tried to lump it as death metal. Then some people were referencing Deftones. I saw one review that referenced Korn. It's like, are you listening to the same band? I'm not sure why people are so adamant still to this day, considering how much overlap there is, in the metal scene, whether it's, black metal bands incorporating death metal influences, or, death metal bands, bringing hardcore or crossover elements in. But for whatever reason, people just didn't quite know what box to put it into. And that seemed to me, aside from the fact that it doesn't sound like Atheist, that seemed to me to be the biggest complaint. It's like they just didn't quite know how to process it.
And why is that? I mean, that should be one of the most refreshing things to anybody that's into music. I mean, these days, how many records do you get a week, Jackie, where you have, where you're like, Jesus Christ, I feel like I just listened to the same record 5 times in a row. And, so you think that people will be like, finally something, different, but it's still heavy and ripping, and it's, it's still got the speed and the anger and the brutality, but now it's got these extra spices, you know what I mean? And it just makes it, I don't know, a little more listenable. I think the timing is really good, even though it took a long time for this. I mean, I wrote this record in 2020, and, it took a long time to get past all the COVID overlaps from labels. They had a lot of records that just got stuck in the pipeline. And so they, that's another reason I feel very fortunate that we got a record deal, because, it's just really hard for labels right now to just get what they had in the, sort of loaded up and ready to go when COVID happened. So to come out of that with a record that's now on the shelves is super exciting. But no, I know people just feel like they've got to classify it. I think it's also like an easy way for, I don't know if it's just, I mean, I guess I might be that way too. I mean, it just depends on how different it is, but I really don't think I mean, I didn't stick in a bunch of like opera clean vocals and shit like that. You know what I mean? My clean vocals are pretty gnarly, and they're just, I mean, they're melodic, they're singing, but it's not like, it's not this, fucking over the top, super clean thing. And it's not that sissy boy clean singing, you know what I mean? Like, for lack of a better term, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no,
like, you know what I mean? It's just like that dashboard confessional sounding clean voice that
Imagine Dragons or something like that.
Gross. Yeah, I can't take it. So it's not like that at all. So, but you know what? It's just fun, man. It's fun to go through this process again. It's an interesting dynamic this time, because I'm kind of doing it by myself. And I got to take all, I got to take it all in and process it. And, I get to do it with the guys that are in the band now, but, the way the record was made, it was just, it wasn't made in a traditional way. So it's an interesting journey so far.
Yeah. Well, just to put the cap on that, I remember back when Strapping Young Lad brought out City, a lot of the magazines and a lot of the websites that are now, can't hug Devin Townsend's nuts quite closely enough to their chests at night. They absolutely detested City. I remember Metal Hammer giving it 3 out of 10. They called it trash. They basically said it sounds like Fear Factory. I remember reading one review where they said, it's competently played death metal, but it's not on a par with bands like Cannibal Corpse. I'm like, why are you even comparing this band to Cannibal Corpse? It's not even close to being the same thing. And of course, now we know, I inferred it already. Devin Townsend, there's a lot of the magazines and a lot of the probably the same journalists that shunned him previously now hail him as the greatest musical genius alive. So I'm
out. I'm sorry, I'm outside right now, and everybody decided to suddenly mow their lawn. So
no, don't worry. It looks really nice and sunny over there. We had I predicted our last day of summer yesterday, and sure enough,
I'm sorry, buddy. Unbelievable.
No worries, man.
Gotta love podcasts, man. Here, I'm in a better spot now. I can take off my glasses now so I can see you. There we go.
Cool.
All right, my man. Trying to get into some good light for you.
Yeah. Well, anyway, like I said, I was saying that Strapping Young Lad, banned people eventually, or a lot of journalists, a lot of magazines that hated it at first. They eventually got around to it, and now they think it's the greatest thing ever. So I've also been in that processing plant that you mentioned earlier about you get 10 albums a week. There's pressure on on you from the record label to go through every single one, have reviews up by a certain date. And exactly to your point, I mean, that's why I stopped writing music reviews and went the podcasting route instead, because I just didn't want to have to be beholden to anybody. And what I found was I was starting to exactly. And I was starting to kind of lose that joy that you get from really digging into a record and wearing the thing out and extracting every last bit of joy and intricacy that you possibly can from it, because you just jump from one thing to the next.
Yeah, and the great thing about that is that they become sort of the soundtrack to your life. So you'll remember listening to that record and what was going on in your life around you, be it love or anger or whatever you were going through at the time immediately comes to mind when you're listening to that, because you associate that soundtrack of listening to a record. Like I'm the same way. Like if I love something, I'll listen to it for nothing but for like 2 weeks and just ride around and listen to it because I like the way it makes me feel. And but I'm also very specific. Like if I'm driving, I have a particular kind of music I want to hear metal wise. If I'm at home, I want to hear a different kind of metal. The soundtrack for my life is involves a lot of other kinds of music as well. So I don't know. But with classifying, I find it frustrating because we went through it with Atheist. In the very beginning, everybody was just like, well, what is that? That's not really death metal, is it? And I was like, no, it's not. But yeah, it's like trying to explain the internet or something to somebody, but everybody should be like, really, at this point, everything's been done, everything's been done so fast and furious and so talented and so many, technical bands. So it definitely wasn't intentional, but to me, the record came out just out, is something new. It's something, sort of a now what, and I think combining 90s, I think a lot of metalheads love old Soundgarden and Mark Lanigan and Alice in Chains and stuff like that. I just think that it's like this, I don't know. I think back in the day, there was a lot of, people were afraid to say they liked Alice in Chains. You know what I mean? Because there was like the gatekeeping going on. But I don't know, there's a lot of resurgence of 90s music that's sort of infiltrating the pop world. So it kind of, to me, it's nice to combine it and still keep it gnarly and heavy,
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting point you make there about the metal scene and how much more open people are to admitting that they like different styles of music now. That they like people like Mark Lanigan. What is it that you think changed that?
Probably, also people getting older. I think there's the youth, the 16 to 20-year-old is more likely to be very segregated in what they like. They feel like they've got to be, they've got to maintain their integrity and they can't be listening to, Deftones. I get so tired of people talking shit about the Deftones. Deftones are fucking brilliant. I can't imagine what is your problem with the Deftones, man? I don't know how you feel about it, Jackie, but I
love it. I like Deftones very much.
And it's different. And nobody said, like, when you hear Deftones, that's Chino, that's them. That's so hard to do. There's so many people making music, so many different bands, so many different albums. So when you're identifiable, man, that's a win, and so I just think they've made some beautifully, tragically heavy shit. and I've always loved them. Now, I don't feel that way about Korn so much. I mean, there's moments of Korn that I really, really love, and I love how sort of different they were when they first came out. They definitely carved their own niche, but I definitely am. I prefer Deftones over Korn when it comes to '90s metal. But just that, I think people secretly, even back in the day, even hardcore death metal people, I mean, I think they secretly, it's like this secret thing, but now people just feel more open to admit it. And I just think that becomes with age. I think after you turn 30, you go, you know what, fuck it, I like the Deftones. What are you going to do about it? Cancel me out of your Facebook group. I mean, I don't know. I think
stop being friends with me. You know what?
Yeah.
You know where I think it actually changed was when Johnny Cash started putting out those Rick Rubin albums. A
Yeah.
lot of folks started coming out and saying, "Hey, I really quite like this," and that to me seemed to kind of open the floodgates to where it was like people had they'd admitted some sort of deep dark secret to each other within the metal community. And all of a sudden, it was okay to go, hey, actually, no, I don't only like Johnny Cash. I really like Woven Hand, or I really like Queens of the Stone Age, or I really like Mark Lanigan. For me, actually, one of the big things was the Sopranos. That probably turned me on to more different styles of music than anything
The Sopranos,
else in
the
my life.
show?
Yeah. And that was the jumping off point into so many different styles of music, and discovering so many bands, and it was I discovered Tinder Sticks that way. I discovered a bunch of stuff from the 70s because it's got such a great soundtrack, generally speaking. But it was like from there, my music taste just like ballooned out into pretty much anything and everything. I mean, I think I'd still spend about 80% of my time listening to heavy music, but I spend a pretty significant chunk of time also listening to stuff like everything from Fleetwood Mac to Radiohead. I even had
I love Fleetwood Mac. Fleetwood Mac automatically makes me feel a particular way whenever I hear it. I mean, that's the greatest thing about music is, all of your favorite bands should immediately connect you with the feeling that you originally got when you listened to it for the first time. Now it's a little different, obviously, as you get used to a record, but it should still put you in mind of, the things you visualize. I don't know. I mean, everybody listens to music differently. I know that if I want to go to a particular place in my head, I know what music to put on to get me there, and so when you get into outside the metal, you can really apply the things that you listen to outside of metal to your metal. You know what I mean? And you just still do it in a more violent way, and so there's a lot to be said for your wealth of musical taste. So there's nothing cool about, I only listen to this kind of music. There's nothing cool about that. You're missing out on a lot of good shit.
Yeah. It's not death metal. It wasn't produced between 1989 and 1992. It fucking sucks.
Ridiculous. Good luck with that. You're missing out.
So I've had this question a couple of times from folks that listen to the podcast that'll, send me a DM or send me a message on, wherever. And a lot of them are in bands, and they're asking me, what do I think record labels want to see from bands nowadays? And honestly, I've said to a couple of folks, one guy in particular recently, I was like, look, you need to create a value proposition for a record label to essentially give them a reason to want to invest in you. And, that comes with a social profile. It comes with playing shows, building a name up for yourself. But, again, I think the social aspect is both an opportunity and kind of almost a gateway to be able to do that. But I was curious, as somebody who's now been most recently on the other side, maybe coming at it from a different angle, because you're coming at it, with the legacy of Atheist, in addition to wanting to, put out new music. What has been your perception and your observation of what labels are after nowadays? Because I also can imagine it's not easy to be a label right now, given the fact that music is so commoditized. The financial model of the record industry has changed completely over the last couple of years. So they must kind of have shifted their focus as well in terms of what they're after from bands now. It's not just putting out bands that they like the sound of. There's more to it than that.
Yeah, I think that the groundwork has to be done. A band really has to sort of just like, I don't know, it's similar to how college football players play for 4 years or 3 years or whatever, and then they go into the NFL. Labels kind of treat bands like that now. They go and see their YouTube site, see what kind of social presence they have, look at their live shows. I always tell bands, please stop posting pictures of yourself with nobody in front of you. It's the worst thing you can do, because it's the first thing somebody's going to see. They go, if you say, oh, well, check out my band, and they go and look at your socials, and there you are playing for 4 people, it's the worst, And it's, this business is very smoke and mirrors as well. You got to be smart as a young band. You've got to, be careful what pictures you post and the things that you post, and really, have that presence of mind to think that, whatever I'm saying or doing right now is going to be the first thing a label person's going to look at. So I think that they expect you to do a lot more than bands realize. Now every now and then a band is just so good that a label's like, fuck, we have to sign it. We'll figure it out. We'll help you figure out the scenario. And I think that a band probably like Sleep Token, is an example of a band that I don't think anybody thought was going to go boom and just explode like that. I don't know much about that band. I don't know how they came up or whatever, but they just seem to have come out of nowhere and really achieved a lot of success really, really quick. But I think labels are just, they also make a lot of mistakes. You know what I mean? Like they don't, they don't know. They don't know what the fuck's good. You know what I mean? They wait for everybody else to sort of react, and that's what they're looking at. They're looking at YouTube sites. They're looking at, your Instagram and all that, and that's how they're determining or if not they want to fuck with it. I think that's sad to say that. I think that probably has more to do with it than whether or not they actually like a band, which is changed. I mean, I think there's exceptions to the rule, but overall, yeah, it's tough to be a label too. I mean. Nobody wants to buy physical records anymore. It's literally just reduced to 10%, 15% of what it used to be, and that's a shame. You'd think people would really want to hold it in their hands still. I mean, I get it. Like, you want to stream, you want the convenience of listening to music. I just think that you should buy the record and then stream it all you want. I think that's the fairest thing to do to a band, I mean, that you want to support. Just buy the actual product and buy a shirt and then stream the shit out of it for the next 10 years.
The thing I also find with bands nowadays, folks that I speak to, they a lot of them still have this very they've got this very idealistic idea of what it takes to get signed by a record label. They think that it's still the days of being able to send demos off to labels, and some guy at the label listens to it and goes, "Wow, that's the next big thing," and you kind of almost feel sorry for them because you go, "It's not Airheads." This is like, this is Wayne's World. You're not going to send a demo tape and get signed. Is as you say, it's the full package. But what was it like being signed as Atheist way back in the day, relative to what it is, to what it's like nowadays?
That was a night and day process. I mean, the way we came up just in that old school way, that sending a demo in an envelope, and hoping that it makes it, and a cassette tape, and hope it doesn't get munched in the cassette player, and back then there were photocopied magazines where people were writing their own reviews about underground bands and then photocopying and stapling them together and creating magazines. And one of them was called Violent Noise, and it was put out by the guy who now does blabbermouth.net, Roy Boy. That was a really important way to find out about bands overseas and all over the world. There was a handful of fanzines, as they were called, and you were able to find all these bands. It was just exciting. All the demos, you try to get as many, and there's always one or two guys in your scene that are like, they've got all the cool demos, and you want to hang out with them and get high and listen to the this band and that band. And I mean, that's how Sepultura was like a huge band in Brazil, but hardly anybody knew them in the States, and Scott Burns and Monty Connor and Bori Boykrin are 3 guys that really kind of made Sepultura happen in the States, and grateful to them. And there's so many bands that those 3 guys and Eula Garrett, there's a handful of writers that are really instrumental in exposing everybody to demo type bands, back in the day. And but it could be more different now. I mean, I just can't even begin to. There's no comparison. That was we were offered there was a record called Raging Death, and Obituary was on it when they were called Executioner. We were called Ravage still, and they made this record with 2 songs per band. Sadist was on it as well. They ended up getting signed, and it was a way for us to have distribution for our demo, because that was the hardest thing. You'd have to put them in an envelope, send it here, send it there, hope it made it. Maybe it took 4 weeks to get there. I mean, it was really dinosaur times of getting music around, whereas now I explain that I could write a song, mix it, send it to you, get your opinion all in probably a 6-hour period. You know what I mean? Like that's an amazing turnover. So, you know, and make a high quality recording as well. Back in the day, you had to go in the studio, yada, yada. But yeah, so everything about it is different, I'd say. You know, I mean, social media, I mean, the life before social. How old are you? Do you remember life before social media?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very well.
Do you? I mean, it was so different. I kind of miss some of that.
I
You know?
was 27 when I opened a Facebook account for the first time, because I can see that on my Facebook page. Like, you know, when did you start it? 2007. So no, I know a fair while before social media. Obviously, I was on MySpace as well, but I never really used MySpace. You know, I really used it to discover bands more than anything else.
Yeah.
You know, and Facebook, I always used, probably up until the podcast, really just as a means to stay in touch with family, because I live, you know, a lot of my family, my friends are overseas or in different countries. You know, my sister now lives in Dubai. My parents are still back in South Africa. So it's honestly, it's you know, it's social maintenance optimization. that's what social media is for me. Obviously, with the podcast, it was different because then I could actually start using it for networking. I mean, I have my own views on. You know, frankly, you know, with the exclusion of the things I've just mentioned, I think social media generally is a force for evil. But I mean, there's no doubt that it has also changed. It has also had, you know, a lot of, or done a lot of good things, and actually maybe you know, gotten a lot of you know, smaller bands exposure that wouldn't otherwise be heard.
Oh, no question. And bands that labels have turned down or hold on, I came back outside. Oh,
The mowing is over.
Look at all that. We're changing scenes. No, I think if you're a young band and you're really good and people respond to your music, you can prove a label wrong. You know what I mean? Like, so back in the day, if a label said, no, I'm sorry, I just, you know, this music you're doing, kids aren't going to like it or whatever, that was their opinion. But these days you can prove them wrong and be like, fuck you, we got 1 million views, you know? And you know, another thing you can do is you don't really need a label. You know what I mean? If you're really good and you really got something that's interesting, you can very well fucking do it on your own. You know, I mean, you got just as much shot at sell, you know, I mean, even if you do it only downloads without physical product, I mean, that was something that was never possible back in the day. You know, the idea of selling a couple thousand of your demo tapes, you know, that would be a lot of work, you know.
Yeah.
So
well, and a lot of bands, people I speak to nowadays, they actually prefer it that way. I mean, there's guys that legitimately will say that they've been approached by labels, they've turned all of them down. They just much prefer doing every single thing on Bandcamp themselves, because that way they can keep whatever money they make, you know, from the project.
A lot of labels these days are signing young bands to 360 deals, and a 360 deal means that they're getting a piece of every aspect of you: merchandise, touring, your records, you know, the whole thing. And that's a deal with the devil, you know, a 360 deal. But I mean, labels, I can understand why labels have to do it, but you know, just to try to you know, to stay alive. But I don't know. I think that everything comes around, and I like to think that people are starting to kind of, you know, vinyl really helped. You know, when vinyl came back, that really helped people have an interest in buying the product as opposed to just downloading it, because there's nothing like a fucking record. You know what I mean? And I hope that in the next 10 years, records will get, you know, maybe we'll see a double album, or, you know what I mean? Or a gate, you know, I like the opening, you know, there's just a lot of artwork that's part of the fun of music, is the imagery, you know, and that's all been reduced to a 1 inch by 1 inch thing you click on online, you know what I mean? And that's kind of lost its mojo. So hopefully, you know, retroactively that'll all come back around and people will start appreciating owning the vinyl, you know. And plus it sounds better.
Yeah, I am lazy though. I was at a hi-fi shop that a friend of mine owns, and I've got I've told you I've got a pretty formidable hi-fi setup in any case, but I was toying with the idea of adding a vinyl player to it, but it's just such a fucking pain in the ass to have to get up, change the vinyl,
it really does.
Close it back down again.
It sounds so good though, man. It sounds so much warmer, and plus it's a different listening experience. So, you know, if you're out in your car or you're on a plane or whatever, I get it. You put your headphones on, you listen to it, but it's a different listening experience if you have, you know, have a couple drinks, smoke, and put vinyl on. It's just, you know, I don't know. It's I think if you, I don't know, we'll talk in 6 months. Give it a shot. Listen to some band.
see if
Especially if you
I
get a nice, especially if you get a nice turntable and a nice
yeah.
speaker. Like it really is you'll hear things on the record that you don't hear on the CD.
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
it's just
speakers I'm set for. I mean, the speakers I've got here are, I mean, they're obscene.
sweet.
And I've got a really cool streamer. So you know, the way I would listen to music now is sit down, I'd have a glass of wine or I'd have a beer, and on
Yeah,
the, you know, on my streaming app, I can see literally everything about the album. You can see there's articles they write, and you know, there's a load of metadata about the record. So
I guess
it's
that is the 21st century way, I suppose. I mean, I
yeah,
forget,
yeah,
that you could just go online and see everything.
yeah.
But I don't know. It
But
always felt like,
I do agree with you about just that cool feeling of holding a record. And I think especially if you're from a certain generation, all of us remember being young, going through our parents' record collection, and you know, whether you pulled
or
out
getting a record and coming
Queen,
home and opening it and
yeah,
taking it out, and the smell of a record, like it smells a particular way. All that shit. I think I've always enjoyed. But I get it. I'm an old guy, so I like that old shit. But now listen, I love my convenience as well, man. I
yeah,
fucking love Bluetooth and to be able to listen to what I want to listen to when I want to listen to it is amazing because but I think that even makes it even harder to be in a new band. It makes me feel even more fortunate to be able to have come with a brand new band at this point in my career. I just feel like super lucky to because there's so many bands trying. They're just coming from all directions and all countries and so much talent, so much good stuff. It's hard to make anything that sticks out. So.
well, yeah. 2023 is, you know, I've called it a year of heavy traffic because, I mean, Jesus Christ! Like last weekend, you had Dying Fetus and Cryptopsy releasing albums on the same day. I mean,
Yeah.
those used to be, those would be milestone records in the years that they come out before. You know, just this month alone, you've got those two.
Incantation.
You've got, you know, Incantation brought out their record. Cannibal Corpse have got a new album coming out.
Yeah.
Shining have got their album on its way. Mayhem are putting out a live album. It's like there's just so much good stuff coming out right now. I've even stopped with doing like top 20s of the year. I just do like a top 30, and even then, looking at my list this year, I'm looking at it going, how do I even narrow this down to 50, let alone 30? Uh, I mean, it's incredible. I think I truly do believe anybody that looks at music now and goes, well, there's nothing good coming out now. You know, it's lost.
We're not listening.
Dude, you're not listening to what's going on at the moment. It is more exciting now, in my opinion, than it has ever been. And this is from somebody who's been listening to metal since the very early 90s. You know, I was younger, so I started, you know, I was probably around sort of 92, 93. I was, you know, still into Judas Priest and Wasp and that sort of stuff. But, you know, I got into Obituary and I got into the heavy stuff after that. But there was awesome music in the 90s. And I love the 90s as a decade. I just thought it was a fucking great time to be alive. But just as far as quality of music now, it is incredible. And I was thinking back to this old interview with David Vincent that I saw on Headbangers Ball, and it was recorded in 1993. It was when they were on tour with Creator and Paradise Lost. And she asked him, you know, why does she think there's so much aggressive, you know, brutal music coming out of Florida at the moment? And he said, well, you know, we live in very aggressive times, and you know that leads to very heavy music. And I actually think, I thought about that again the other day, and I thought to myself, you know, with all the craziness that's going on in the world, actually, it's not a surprise that the art is reflecting that.
It should reflect that, and I've often said I'm surprised there's not a larger punk rock movement right now. Because when you think about the '80s and the Reagan era of the '80s in American politics, and punk rock responded to that. You know, the late '70s, early '80s politics really spawned punk rock. You know, there was just a lot of anti-government, anti-politics, and so I've always been surprised, like, the way times are right now. I mean, it is so divisive and so angry, and I've never in my years ever seen society be the way it is and be so divided. And of course, music should always reflect that. But I think it does in metal, but it doesn't in punk rock, and I'm really surprised. Unless I'm missing, maybe I'm not in touch with enough punk rock. But you know, I mean, that movement where there was just really blatant statements being made about things that were happening politically. You know, punk rock was always great at that, really pointing things out specifically, you know, and using names, and there isn't a lot of that. I think it's really hard also to put any kind of politics in your music at all, because these days you can just instantly get, you know, just put right out of the party.
Yeah, no,
You gotta be careful what you say.
So let's actually talk a little about lyrics, and or not necessarily just lyrics, but songs generally. And one thing that I mentioned to you before we started, I'm keen to do is I'm keen to get your commentary on like a track by track rundown of Outside the Spiral, because as I said to you, it's so cool to me to hear this finally sort of come to life, having heard these these songs like from way back. Seeing how people respond to them, I think it'd be interesting to be able to tell people the story about them too. So, if we start off with the opening song, "Starring Role," talk to me a bit about how that song came about, and about what the record, what the intent with the song, any sort of memories that come to you from having written the song.
Man, it's just a hard part for me because I wish that I could remember more about how things happen. But let me start by saying there's something I also want to clear up. A lot of people think that Till the Dirt is like, I don't know if we covered this the last time I was on there, but I just want to make it clear. It's like till we die, till the end. It's not anything to do with any farming or anything. It seems to be that this huge misconception. People are missing the meaning of Till the Dirt. So anyway, let me just say that.
People thought it was country music. I'm sure.
Till the dirt. I'm out farming, tilling the dirt. So it's but I get it. So anyway, moving on. Starring Role is so lyrically, it's really hard for me, brother, to really describe, because a lot of times I'll write and then I go back and I figure out what I was trying to say. I mean, I know it sounds odd, and it's that way with almost all the songs on here. All I can really say is, with Starring Role was like, I love that it just came out of the gate like just blazing. I mean, each one of these songs were written in a night, so it's really hard to. It's not like there's a couple of weeks of development and all that. They were all literally just little explosions each night. And God, man, I'm being so honest with you right now that it is really hard for me to give you a track by track run. I can give you a little bit in what I've learned about myself from listening to the record.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Well, like I said, we'll do that just as whatever comes to mind as we make our way through the record.
Because also, like sometimes you explain songs to people and they go, oh, fuck, it meant something different to me, and I hate to take that away from people. I love for people to be able to interpret. I like to write lyrics that are very vague and, but powerful, but leave room for interpretation. But Starring Role is essentially just about, if you've ever if you've ever been dreaming about something really great, like really amazing, and everything was perfect, and you wake up and you're like, shit. Man, I really would have loved if that dream was, if it was real. It's as simple as that, just having a starring role in your, finding a way to match that in your awake times. You know what I mean? You never can get that kind of starring role. So the dreams are, I love dreaming. Dreaming is amazing, and I'm sure it's happened to everybody where they've just been involved in this dream that's just, where you've had everything you want, or it's a perfect scenario, and then you wake up and you're like, oh, it's just never quite the same. So that is Starring Role. And it's,
with you on the vagary of lyrics. I've much preferred. Look, there's exceptions. There's some lyrics are extremely direct. You mentioned punk rock. There's a couple of those old like hardcore bands where the lyrics are so like knuckle dragging direct. It's genius. It's genius in its stupidity, like intentional, like the stupidity by design. But vague lyrics have always generally been my favorite, because you can impose how you're feeling or how you're thinking on what you're hearing, and it comes alive to you in a way that maybe it doesn't come alive to anybody else. I've always actually thought Phil Anselmo is extremely good at that. Like, and again, maybe this is because of how I responded to Vulgar Display of Power and Far Beyond Driven when I was young. But, I remember reading those lyrics, and they could mean so many different things to you. Not all of the songs, but some of them, depending on where you were, where your head was at the time. Starring Role, I mean, you could interpret as, that analogy of being the action hero in your own movie. Like, that's
absolutely 100% nailed it. Yeah, exactly like that. Outside the Spiral is the next track, I think. And, my memories of that are probably more vivid because it was the very first one that made me write all these songs. And it was the first one where I just felt like, I don't know what this is musically. It had this weird droning guitar part that I put over the main chug of the riff, and it just created this dissonance that made me feel
That's
weird.
that like down,
Yeah,
down, yeah,
yeah,
which is fucking brilliant. That was the first song I heard that I think you sent me, and that just made me instantly fall in love with the project. I was like, "Fuck it, this
it's
sounds
like
fucking
this
great."
really raw note that just kind of lingers over the top of the dun, 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 dun,
Yeah,
and it's just, and because of the contrast of that, it sounded, it just made me feel, it gave me the you always want to try to make your hair stand up, and I was like, wow, but it's definitely not heavy enough to be, it's not interesting or intricate enough to be an Atheist song. So I just went ahead and finished it that night. I wrote some lyrics, and in the process of doing that, I just found all these places that I could use both of my voices. And so that was so I'll always remember that as the sort of the birth, the baby of the whole gang, and then it ended up being the title track. And then, later having Steve DiGiorgio put his bass on it actually changed the song as well from the demo version that I have, that I probably laid on you before
yeah.
Steve did his bass lines. And if you listen to the two, it's quite a bit of difference. Steve's bass line is just really awesome though, but it just gives it a different, a different feel. But so yeah, and that really immediately what comes to mind lyrically about that was just being, in the middle of COVID and being outside of the fucking chaos, and there was so much going on then, with the George Floyd and the COVID and the misinformation and the ticking tally of deaths every day. It was on television every time you turned it on, and it was just, for me, it was just really nice to be outside of all that and fully engulfed in music. And that's how so for some people, COVID was this horrific thing. And and I know it was for a lot of people, and I, empathize with them. But for me, it was really a brilliant time. It was the most prolific musical time I ever had, and I really enjoyed being outside of that fucking need to be out and about all the time, so that's what that song sort of signifies.
Well, I don't think it was too long after I spoke to you, maybe the last time, that we fucked off and we moved to the countryside. And it was partly because I just was fed up with, the lockdowns, the restrictions and stuff like that. Where we ended up moving to, there's a big horse ranch where my fiance's parents live in one house, and then there's a smaller house that we live in. But one of the best things about living here was, you didn't really feel like it was COVID anymore. I can still walk around outside, be absolutely fine. I don't see anybody. That's even better. We've got one neighbor that's about, several hundred yards up the road. There's nobody else. And, frankly, I prefer it that way. I'm never going to move back to the city again. So,
yeah, it changed a lot of the way people live and the way people maintain friendships. And I mean, it really was a game-changing movement. And that, people will look back on 50 years from now and be like, wow, there was life before COVID and life after. It definitely changed. If I hadn't been able to make music, it would have been terrible because we couldn't obviously tour or do anything. There was this lingering feeling that, man, will we ever get to go on stage again? And what will it look like? Is everybody going to be wearing a mask while we're playing? And are we going to be wearing just all the unknown weirdness of it. That I definitely did not enjoy, but I was just fully engulfed in writing this album. And so it was, the thing that kept me from probably feeling what was happening around me, so.
Well, you mentioned life before COVID. Like, I don't know whether you ever, have watched any of it, but you watch a documentary about the 90s, like even some of the Woodstock documentaries, like the one that they did on the Woodstock 99 on Netflix. And you look at the 90s as a decade. And I have to say, I mean, for all of I feel like there's a bit of a smear campaign against the 90s, but whenever I see it, I'm like, this was fucking great. Like, I don't, maybe it was because I was a teenager and I was footloose and fancy free, but it's like, you didn't realize at the time just how exciting and how much fun the 90s actually was.
Do you know what I think about this? I think, when I was in the, late 80s and the 90s, and that was, so that time to now is 30 plus years. So think about it in 1990, what I think about what I thought about the 60s and the late 50s musically.
Yeah.
Like I got it. There was some good music and good, the Everly Brothers, good for them. Elvis, yeah, who, but I mean, as a musician, I didn't give a shit about that. I wonder if people feel that way about the 90s. But then later on, as I got older, I learned to appreciate the music from the 60s and the early 70s, and now as I get and that continues to grow as I've gotten older, my appreciation for that music. So when we're talking about 2023 and the 90s, that's how long ago. I mean, to me the 90s felt like just a minute ago, but to a kid that was born in whatever 2000 and beyond, or even 2010, a young teenager, 13 years old, getting ready to discover all this music. The 90s probably seems so archaic and like, ugh, I don't want to listen to music, but they're missing out on a lot of good shit. But I think that's just young people in general probably feel that way. I'm just trying to relate to how I felt about late 50s and early 60s music when I was first starting to make metal. I always loved the Beatles.
I mean, when I was first getting into metal, none of that music meant anything to me either. But nowadays I can go and I can listen to a song like, Today by Jefferson Airplane, and it's like it's so much. It's such a simplistic song, but there's so much emotion that is poured into that. And even when you watch the Jefferson Airplane, I think it was Jefferson Airplane at Woodstock, the performance they did. There's no fancy mics the way that they recorded that show. There's no overdubs or anything like that, and it sounds so haunting. Some of those songs.
Grace Slick too. I mean, it's
I
always been amazing. I've always enjoyed her. The sound of her voice. She always had a darkness to the tone of her voice. So all that old stuff. I mean, there's a tremendous. I mean, even old Styx. I mean, when you say Styx, it's such a yacht rock sounding thing to a young kid. But man, there's some good ass fucking guitar playing, and some tremendous songwriting. I mean, Grand Illusion. I mean, like, what a fucking amazing song. I mean, you forget and you have to go back and listen. Plus, the way music was made then, that's real shit. You're hearing real performances. I mean, there's no AI, there's no bullshit, no fixing, no digital. Those were the performances that they gave, and they're in a glass case of greatness forever. And
also, exactly, like you go back and watch Once Upon a. It really struck me when I watched Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'm like, I watched this and I was like, man, there's a part of me that wishes I was born. I was like, I was alive for this time. It looks like the biggest blast on the face of the earth.
It was decadent. It was decadent. I was still pretty young, so I mean, in the late 80s, I was I was a teenager, so it was a good time. So late 80s. So see, 1980, I was 12, so probably like 14 is when I started playing guitar. So so I got to enjoy most of the 80s from a teenage perspective, and then a young adult through the 90s. And that's a good time to. It was a good time to be alive. I wish I was a little bit older. I wish I had been a little older in the 80s so that I could go into some of the bars and stuff. I wasn't like old enough to get into bars for a while, and so I missed out on some shows that my friends got to go to. But short of that, it was a really cool time. It was also very, being an extreme metal person. What was king around here, at least in Florida, was Crimson Glory, Sabotage, sort of more power metal, and also then you had like in the mid 80s you had all the glam rock stuff going on, the Motley Crue clones, and that were everywhere, and that was a weird time to be the kind of band that Atheist was in that time, to start off like that, where everybody was just like, what are you doing? You sound terrible. And so it was really hard to like keep our focus, and we're gonna keep playing fast and weird and stick to our guns, so it's funny to look back on that.
So talk to me a bit about Privilege.
Privileged. It's just, I've oftentimes will wrap up an email with, it's good to be alive. It's really just good to be breathing every day. And people forget that, you forget just how lucky we are to go out and enjoy the sunshine and smell the flower. It sounds hokey and corny, but you kind of get lost in your world of working and doing whatever it is you do. And just all of a sudden, you watch somebody pass early in their 50s or something, and you just think, damn, it can be over tomorrow. And I just, I feel grateful for all the, for the life that I've had. And so every day to me is a privilege. Like I just feel like, sweet, I made it to another one. I'm going to write some songs, I'm going to hug my kids, I'm going to eat some good food, smoke some weed, have some drinks, you know what I mean? Enjoy life, talk to friends, talk about metal, like, go to sleep and hope that I can do it again the next day. You know what I mean? And it's kind of about that, just appreciating it, because it does go quick, man.
Oh, without a doubt. What informed that view, that approach that you take to life? Because I mean, it's there's an awful lot of folks in metal who generally, don't have what my friend Mike Hill would refer to as life affirming views. They don't have a life positive demeanor. And we probably both know several people that are like that. But I'm actually more like you in that I maybe it's because I dislike so many people that when I meet someone that I like and that I get on with, I'm genuinely appreciative of the time I get to spend with that person, or I'm appreciative of that person for the value that they add to my life. And I approach that really with pretty much everything, whether I'm spending time with my family, whether I'm just doing something fun that I enjoy, whether I'm sitting on the sofa with my dog. I mean, my dog is a good example. She's 13 years old now. And when in the mornings when she jumps on the bed, or she does something that I think is funny, I will consciously remind myself, like
soak it in,
how you feel about this moment right now, because in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, statistically, there's a good chance that she's not going to be around. And I find that as I've grown older and I've become more that way inclined, I've definitely become a lot less discontent with life. I think it's a much healthier way to live, to
absolutely,
approach life in that way.
Yeah, I mean, everybody lives differently, but for me, I just, I don't know. I mean, I've certainly faced enough bad things in my life and a bunch of tough breaks to where I probably shouldn't feel that way. But I just do. I really do enjoy people. I feel like, I'm constantly sort of baking this cake of life, and good relationships are like the butter. The more butter, the better the cake. You know what I mean? So I really enjoy having, I feel like it enriches my life to have good relationships, good conversations, but also just, living close to the beach. There's never a time that I go and watch a sunset that I don't feel like, man, fuck, I am so lucky that I just saw that sunset, and some people think they're seeing, you've seen one sunset, you've seen them all. They're all different. They're like fingerprints, they're all just, every sunset is different. So each one that I can kind of take in, I kind of put in my spiritual back pocket, and I really do enjoy it. And especially with my little boy, being able to sit out on the beach with him. And you talk about like looking at your dog. I mean, I look at that little boy all the time and I just think, man, he's going to be this, he's going to be that. Maybe he'll be this, maybe he'll be that. And it's just his hugs, and just the smell of his curls. I appreciate all that shit. It's
no,
just,
I get that too. I remember with my daughter when she would come and visit me. She's 9 years old now, but when she would come and visit me, there came a point where she was I remember sitting and looking at her on the sofa once, and it was almost like I could start to see her features morph into like a little girl rather than a little toddler.
yeah.
And I remember it just like hitting me. It's like, shit, that door is nearly closed. All of the little toddler things, the little cute things that she would do as a 2 and a 3-year-old, it's you're never going to see it ever again.
My daughter is 17. She's about to turn 18, and she's had a different life. She's been on the spectrum, so she taught me a lot of. I went through kind of two parenting worlds, and learning to have a child with autism and then a child who's neurotypical, like Thor. So but she, just a minute ago was 5 years old, and all of a sudden she's 18, and it's just a dynamic that makes me even more intensely appreciate each day now with Thor, who's 6. And that happened very quickly. Seems like a minute ago he was a baby. So I'm just like, whoa, 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 whoa. So it's almost a de-acceleration if I just try to appreciate every single day you wake up, and it does help you get through the bullshit of life. You turn on TV and people just getting gunned down all over the place, and just try to keep moving forward. And but there's also that sad thing about how life just goes on without you. When you think about if something tragic happens, I often think like, how do people go on when something happens to their child? Like, and the rest of the world just goes on around you, and TV, and people are laughing and playing, and and you're just sitting there with that sorrow. Like, I don't know how people get through that. That would probably be the only thing that would make me change my view that, oh, it's great to be alive. But short of that,
I'm with you on that as well.
I love life. So that's privilege.
So yeah, I'm as I said, I'm absolutely with you on that as well. I think Bill Burr said it. When it comes to when you become a parent, you find yourself frequently throughout the day, like shouting yourself to a quiet in the car, or like I have this habit when sometimes when I'll have this flash of like and only parents will understand this. You have the flash of the worst possible outcome within a situation. Like I'll get a rudimentary example. I'm walking on the pavement with my daughter. I remember this actually happening when she was young, and I'm holding her hand, and there's cars going by, and all of a sudden you've got this flash, like, fuck, what if the bus mounts the pavement and hits us? And then you kind of like have to pinch yourself, like, shut the fuck up. Move on.
You immediately put yourself mentally in that. What would that feel like? Oh shit! And it's overwhelming sometimes. Yeah, I mean, to have that idea of something happening to your child was just the worst. That's terrible.
So as it seems, is the song that we've got next?
Yeah. Oh man. I'm trying to. I still. It's hard to explain. I don't know. It's not. It's a kind of a positive song, I guess. But it's also this. Things look like they're going to be great. They're probably not. In a nutshell, it's kind of the way it's happened for me. Everything looks like it's going to be. Everything on paper is great, but oh shit. It really just is as it seems, just the same. I think that's where my head was at the time. I think I'm starting to feel a little frustrated about the business, the record industry, because I was excited about this new music, and I had laid it on a couple of people, and I was immediately faced with, it's gonna be really hard for you to be able to put this music out. And that's where Scott Burns was really instrumental, because he just kept cheerleading me through it, because to the point where he was going to start his own label and press up vinyl. Yeah, because he was so mad that we weren't getting the reaction that we were having to the music, and he was just like, fuck these fucking people. I'll start a label, and we'll print up 1,500 copies of vinyl. And like we went through a couple of logos, and we were going to call it Evangelical Records. That's what it was going to be called. Sorry, I had to get that out. But yeah, because it was frustration, So and I think that was happening during that song. So
how did the whole how did Monty Connor connect with the music? Because obviously I know you mentioned earlier that you knew him.
By the way, I could quickly say something cool. I don't mean to cut you off. I'll go right back into that. But I was just remembering as I go lyrically, unless I hear the music, it's hard for me to remember the lyrics. That's a weird thing about me. So I was just one of the main lines, and as it seems, is push the art into the eyes so they realize. And that kind of sums up what that song is, where you really, really have to just push your art down everybody's throat, just to get people's attention for a second, so that kind of lends itself to that frustration. So I'm sorry, now you were saying the next question was?
I was asking about Monty Connor and how he kind of, how he got his ears on this, because obviously, time had passed quite substantially since we first started talking about this. And Monty is known for having signed, a lot of, as you said, a lot of the biggest bands, including DSI, bands like that. How did the whole connection there happen with, you kind of getting this to him?
We've been friends since, the late 80s. And over the years, I've sent him music, and a lot of times he didn't like it. Neurotica, he didn't like. He didn't like Stones of Madness. Anything that wasn't crazy like Atheist, he would always be honest with me, though. He's always brutally honest, and that's why I've maintained a relationship with him, because I know that, he's going to tell me the truth. And same with Scott. So I enjoy having those kinds of truth tellers around me. And so we've just always stayed in touch over the years. And so just like, I got excited about those. The first two songs were Outside the Spiral and Bring on the Gods. And I sent it to him, and I sent it to fucking everybody. I sent it to Gene Hoglan and Terrence from Suffo, and I just wanted to get their reaction, and so he kind of, kept an eye on me over the course of the year. But again, always super cynical, Monty, like, oh man, what's it going to be, a solo record? And I was like, he's like, nobody buys solo records. Even the guys from Slipknot tried to do solo records, and nobody gave a shit, So it's always Monty, like, to keep you, reaching. And so I was, eventually it became a band, and I think that interested Monty more. And there was also some other people at the label that were also championing the idea of doing the record. And then it came down to where Monty just sat down and listened to the whole thing completed, and really kind of rolled up his sleeves and said, yeah, let's remix this again. And I don't feel like there's a bad song on this fucking record. And that's really hard to get out of Monty. And I just couldn't believe the full turnaround on it. And still cynical about the business. He's like, I think it's amazing that it's hard to tell in this day and age whether or not anybody will buy anything. But pound for pound, it's a rock solid record, top to bottom. So it's a blessing to have a guy like him, involved, for sure. Look who just stormed the party.
Oh, how's it going?
Thor, what's up, buddy?
Hi.
How you doing?
All right, go back in with mommy. Go back in with mommy. I know. Go back in with mommy.
One last question about him. Can you confirm or deny I don't know whether it's an urban legend or whether it's the real deal, hence why I'm asking. There's a story about Glenn Benton sending Monty I think it was the Amon demo wrapped in his boxer shorts when he first approached Roadrunner. And I think it was accompanied by like a note that said, sign us or go fuck yourself, or something to that effect. Do you know anything about that?
I've never heard that story. No, I'll have to ask Monty about that. But I do know that Monty was super excited about the Aside. We actually met up in the studio in Moorsound in that time where he was all excited about that. I remember him bringing a birthday present for Glenn's son at the time. It was like 3, something like that. And but no, I don't know about that one. I never heard that story. But I'd
heard it, and I was curious, as someone who was reasonably close to the scene, what your take was on it.
I think Monty kind of fell over backwards to because Deicide in the early days was some dark shit. It was really timing wise, they were they nailed that. There was a very convincing darkness to them. It wasn't a put on, and so I think Monty really got excited about that.
I mean, people were absolutely petrified of Glenn.
He's a scary looking dude, yeah.
I was about to say, it goes back to all those old videos where he would be on, be interviewed by the BBC, and they ask him if he's possessed, and he's like, "Of course." And it's like, he definitely knew how to play the character extremely convincingly. And then later on, you find out he's a pretty chilled out, laid back dude. You see him on stage.
It's entertainment,
and it's a different Glenn. Yeah. All right. So next up, we've got Invitation.
Yeah. So that is definitely a pretty direct fuck you to the political establishment on the right. I was just very angry at what was happening at that time, and I went against my own rule of not really getting political. But it's not that it's political; it's just that it's beyond politics. It's about being a good person, and being good to each other, and realizing that while everything is happening right now, we're against each other, and while that's happening, our government in the United States is just stuffing their pockets and getting tax breaks left and right. We're fighting with each other. If we could just stop fighting with each other and turn our attention to them, they're a bunch of fucking crooks. And so it's just essentially an invitation to go fuck yourself and move along. I'd love to see a new style of politics in America. Just a new breed of we have just the ancient 80-year-old people running this country. I mean,
oh, Nancy Pelosi just said she's standing for re-election. She's 82.
get the fuck out of here. I mean, there's a lot of young, bright minds that are forward thinking, and I think it's time. Enough. These people have gotten so wealthy off the backs of hardworking American people, and now the way it is with corporations. I mean, that's who lobbies for their little political campaigns. I mean, think about how nice it must be to have everybody donate all this money to you so you can fly around in private jets and go talk to people, and everybody claps at everything you say. And I mean, they get this rock star mentality about that, where they're raising money all the time, millions and millions of dollars, while people are fucking sleeping on the street. I mean, it's just they don't work for us, as they should. They were put in place and elected to work for us, and not for their own personal gain. And then that line has been blurred. So yeah, I just that is my personal metal invitation for all those people to just get fucked.
Well, that's I've said this many times, and I don't want to. People are going to go nuts if I go down this road again. Not go nuts, but they've heard it a lot on the show. But I have often said, I think people, if they really stopped to think carefully about the role of government and what government is supposed to do, especially in Western civilization, government is by the people, for the people, in any democracy. And they realized, as an example as well, what the idea of taxation is. Taxation is called the public coffer for a reason. It's you and I putting money into a public, into a public pool that is then allocated and used to pay for services that we don't want to, we don't have the time to render ourselves because we're being economically active elsewhere. If they just thought of politics in with those two lenses on, it would change substantially who they vote for. Because that's when that's when they would realize exactly what you say now. All these people are just lining their pockets, and the division I increasingly believe is by design. It's astonishing how many people that believe they are lean hard to the left or lean hard to the right. If you sat them down in a room and you said, just sit down and just talk to each other just about general shit and see what you see.
Yeah, and when I say the right, it's also the left as well. I mean, there's just both sides of the aisle are just really just completely out of line and not governing for the people. And and if you reduce it to, like, if you lived in a house with 4 other people and everybody kicked in money, but the one guy with the key spent all the money, bought a bunch of guns, a whole bunch of guns, like 80% of the money that you gave.
Gambling, because he has to rack up debt.
Yeah, and they come to pay the bills, and they're like, "Oh, we can't balance the budget, and if you guys don't give me a little bit more money, then I'm not going to balance the budget at all." I mean, it's just, if you reduce it to like a household, like we were giving all these people their money, and they're deciding how they want to spend it, and we're, you look at Walmart, for instance. I think 4 or 5 out of 10 of their people live on social services, but yet they're getting these tax breaks, these corporate tax breaks that are just, they're making billions in profits, and meanwhile we're paying for some of their people with food stamps and stuff like that. So I mean, that shit is just out of control, and it doesn't take you don't have to even be political. It's just about, just we put in this money, we would like it to be spent the way we would like it to be spent, and that has all been lost. And they've just taken all the real diplomacy out of it, and we live in really chaotic times. I've never seen anything like it. It's very divisive, and I hope that changes for my kids' sake. That they don't have to go through this.
I read something today that was absolutely insane. I want to see if I can find it real quick. And it was basically a guy was saying we're in a if the real Great Depression is right now. One of the statistics that they quoted in there, which really blew my mind, was something to the effect of the percentage of your salary which would go towards paying rent or paying the mortgage during the Great Depression versus what it is now. And now it's exponentially higher. Same for buying a car, same for all of the kind of major costs that, you would have to undertake as an adult. And the guy basically concludes in posting this. It's like, the only reason why people aren't seeing this for the complete and utter catastrophe that it is basically because the government has just brainwashed them into thinking you have it better now than anybody had it previously. You don't. You demonstrably don't. But anyway, we're in agreement. Is the gist of that. So. Forest
musically, that song that's one of my favorite songs on the album, because it's got a ministry vibe to it, like a you know, it's really simple and straightforward, but I think that song live will be super powerful. And but oddly, it's not one that people shout out on the album, but I love that particular, just the sound of it, just the chugging, slow, sort of easy to ride nature of it, though. It's one of my favorites.
What's the plans with playing live? Because I know you're doing shows with Atheist.
Yeah, we're
But
doing a
what's
bunch of touring
the
next year. It's just really, I mean, we're only 2 weeks into this. It's a brand new band. You know what I mean? If I think that opportunity will probably present itself in the coming weeks, and then we'll talk about it for next year for sure. But you know, honestly, these songs were all written and, and never performed. So like it's going to be really cool to see how they take shape in a live setting, because it's usually the other way around. You usually play the songs live and then you go and record them. Well, this is the opposite. So as cool as they are now, I think they're going to be even cooler when they get into a live setting with the drums and just, modern day volume of it all. I just think it'll be pretty sweet. So hopefully, 2024, we'll at least do a handful of shows. I don't know if the Atheist touring schedule will allow for too much, but we might be able to do a little of both. Let's see. I'm trying to do
know there are a lot of people that are going to berate me for not asking it if I don't. So, as far as new Atheist music is concerned, is that something that's ever going to be on the cards? What's the?
Oh no, it's very. Not only is it on the cards, but I have been really super focused, and the guys that are in the band with me now are focused as well on just that's all we're doing is writing Atheist stuff. So we've been going back and forth. It's a little different because typically I've always written in the same room, with like Steve Flynn or whoever was in the band. And so we're going out a little bit differently. We're doing a lot of stuff through the mail because these guys are young and they know how to do that with files and sharing and all that. So we're kind of doing it in a different way, but it's really fun and exciting. And so I'll write something and send it out to the drummer, and he'll put drums and send it back, and I'm like, oh, that's sweet, try this. So we're in that stage right now where we're just we're gonna try to have a few songs and be ready to go once we're in a position to sign our new sign a new deal for Atheist to do a new record. We'll have all the material ready, but I have no shortage of riffs already recorded. And that's how Till the Dirt came about. I had been writing Atheist stuff, and I had about 3 hours worth of riffs, like, just little 30-second sections, 30, 45-second sections at each night that I would sit down and play. And then that Till the Dirt stuff just kind of came creeping out in the middle of all that. So I've got all those files and all that stuff for us to go through. So it's definitely a priority for 2024. Like it's never been. I know we got caught up in a contractual scenario that cost us 4 years. So that's why we haven't made a record, not because we don't want to or we can't. It's just that we just couldn't. So hopefully all that is clearing up, and lots of good shit on the horizon.
Awesome. So 2024 is going to be a busy year for you.
Yeah, I hope that.
I am conscious of your time, so let's wrap up the album run through this way. What are aside from the songs that we've spoken about, what is the one or two other songs that you feel particularly close to? Like for me, Bring on the Gods is absolutely extraordinary, and The Good, the Bad, the Other. Those are probably my two standouts from the remaining tracks on the record. But I'm curious to kind of get your take on it, and what they kind of mean, or again, any commentary that you have around them.
I really love Who Awaits. Who Awaits is the perfect combination of the 90s stoner Seattle kind of vibe mixed with blast beat. It's kind of the perfect mix of the two, in my opinion. The Good, the Bad, the Other is one that's funny that my friend Kyle Sokol plays bass on that, and it's really fast and crazy, and it's not one that I gravitated to. I didn't think anybody would like as much. That's why it's towards the end of the album, and shockingly, like so many people have shouted that song out. But Forest of Because, out of all the remaining songs, Forest of Because and Who Awaits are probably two of my favorite, just because they're they both got that element, that Sabbathy element, that Kayasi element mixed with extreme metal as well. And that's my favorite part about the theme of this album, is just that the way that feels is really unique. To hear these familiar 90 vibes, and all of a sudden everything is moving really fast and violently underneath it. I love that combination. So those two songs really have a lot of that. Some great guitar playing, and Forest of Because as well. some great solos, and really throughout the whole records, all the people that came and helped me put it together after it was written, and played what I asked them to play, and they played it well, and it was really. And then the solos, just they were able to take that upon themselves, and that was, each person from Loomis to the other guys that played on the record, everybody did such a top-notch job. So I feel super lucky, the way it came together. It wasn't recorded in a traditional studio, and not one person laid eyes on each other for the whole record, which is another weird ass thing to think about. It's the first time I've ever made a record like that. So a lot of firsts, and so there's there's really, I don't think there's a shitty song on the record. Of course, they're all my babies, but there's something in every song that's interesting, I think, and it moves by pretty quickly, I think.
You've referenced it a couple of times now, that kind of 90s Seattle sound. You mentioned Caius, you mentioned Mark Lanigan. Would you ever do something as kind of outside of the purview of what you've typically done before, like Mark Lanigan, or maybe like Caius or Queens of the Stone Age or something like that?
I mean, I had Neurotica. I don't know if you've listened to Neurotica at all, but that those two albums have a lot of that shit on it. The first one, have you ever heard either of those two?
Not really, no.
So the first one was produced by Brian from AC/DC, and his producing sort of technique left us alone, and that was, it was a really kind of very much a kind of a stoner rock record. And then the next record we did with Kevin Shirley, who does all the Iron Maiden stuff and did like Silverchair and all that. It was a more of a mainstream band, but it had a lot of those Caius elements in it. So, but I also personally, I write with a friend named Beazle. He has a studio, and we'll go in and write songs like that. I have just, when I'm dead and gone, hopefully my kids will dig up all this music and pass it around to my talented friends, and everybody can do some shit, because I have so much music. I don't even know what to do with it all, really. I write songs almost every day. So I actually have, a lot of songs that are in that vein. Would I ever make a record like that? I don't know. I mean, I didn't plan on doing this. You know what I mean? I just kind of take things as they come to me. But I wish I could write a record as cool as Sky Valley, though. That's a fucking amazing record.
great record. I'm seeing you more as really shocking the world and doing something like Whiskey for the Holy Ghost, which I think is fucking incredible. I'm such a big Mark Lanigan fan in any case, and I think I became an even bigger fan after I listened to his autobiography. Like, there's something very special about hearing him actually tell that story, and I only listened to it after he'd passed away, which made it very sad. But yeah, I've been a fan of his for years and years.
No, oh my God, yeah. If you don't know about Mark Lanigan, do yourself a favor and do a deep dive. His voice is just it's tortured, and you can't teach somebody to sing like that. And he lived a very rough life, man. And but it really just, his music is painful and beautiful, and there's just so much great about Mark Lanigan. You're right. If anything, at this point in my career, that would be something I would actually try to do, as opposed to just waiting for it to come to me. But I really have to. It's hard because it's so dark. Like, for it to be authentic, I would have to be in a really dark space.
Yeah,
in order for it to be real.
That's true. I mean, the thing is, like, he is as great as he is because he generally, he was called Dark Mark for a reason.
Oh man, he went through a lot of shit.
Because he was, the most well-adjusted, chilled-out dude. I mean, it's interesting. You see interviews with him, in the last years of his life, and he did seem like he was pretty content and pretty happy. But then you also see, like, there's a performance I'll send you on Facebook where it's an acoustic show with him and Greg Duley. They had performed as the Gutter Twins, but he does Kimiko's Dream House, which I think was on, I can't remember what album it was on, but fuck me, it is so powerful and so raw and so emotional. I mean, he's just he operates on a level that most singers will never ever be able to touch.
Yep, I cannot overstate how fucking amazing he is, and that's something to talk about. Making you feel a particular way every time you put on a Mark Lanigan record, especially the dark stuff. It's going to make you feel. It's going to transport you into a different headspace than most anything else you'll listen to. Really never got enough credit. You know what I mean? Like,
I agree.
You know, I think he was just under the radar, brilliant. You know, what is that other guy's name that everybody, all the hipsters love? Shit, I can't think of the guy's name. He's got a grovelly ass voice, and
Tom Waits.
Yeah, Tom Waits.
Yeah.
I've never really been a Tom Waits fan. I mean, I every time I've seen him or heard a little bit of it, I was interested in it. But he's kind of older, isn't he?
Yeah, he is a bit older, but I would agree with you. He's very hit or miss, I think.
Mark Lanigan though is like this.
It's style over substance with Tom Waits. With Mark Lanigan, it's all substance.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. So good. Loved it. And I was a big Mother Love Bone fan as well. I loved Andy Wood and all that stuff that they were doing back then. I thought that was this weird combination of the Cult meets Aerosmith. You know, did you ever listen to Apple?
I did, but years and years ago. But when you said the Cult, though, I was really surprised by how good that last Cult record was. Like, I think it came out.
Cult fucking rules, man.
Jesus, man, those guys, like, you know, there's so few bands from that scene and from that era that still have it. But you know, those guys sound like they haven't lost a step. Yeah,
man. Ian Astbury is an amazing vocal. I've always loved the Cult. I love that record they did with Rick Rubin. It's my favorite, Electric. Yeah, it's called Electric, and it's super raw, and that's what I love about Rubin's productions, like what he did with the Chili Peppers and Slayer, and you know, just what you're hearing is just what the bands actually sound like, you know, which I think is something that's really lost in today's music. You don't know what the fuck you're listening to now. I mean, people just aren't even using real drums. There's just all triggers because of the speed. You know what I mean? And it's just, and there's just like no feeling to those, you know, that feeling that you had when you first heard Angel of Death and you heard the double bass break. Man,
for me,
you know,
it's like when I think of a drum performance that like grabbed me by the innards, it's actually Steve on the song Deicide. You know, that like that sort of mid-tempo gallop right before the like kill him, or it's actually right after kill him, I think. So Glenn is yelling kill him. It's like it's like I always refer to it as like Steve sounds like he's chasing the riff. He has a very specific way of doing it. Like if you listen to Christ Denied or Once Upon a Cross, that's very clear there as well. He chases after the riff when he plays. He's got a very unique way of kind of communicating groove. But
great guy as well.
Oh yeah.
Super cool guy. I love him. We hung out on occasion.
Yeah, well, he and I spent I can't remember whether it was my 28th or 29th birthday. I interviewed him for Chronicles of Chaos, and I happened to drop during the conversation. You know, he was like, "What are you going to do tonight?" I said, "Oh, it's my birthday. I'm just going to go home and I'm going to chill out." He's like, "No, stay here." And you know, basically, he and I said, you know, boozing it up for the rest of the night. But yeah, great dude, absolutely awesome.
My birthday's tomorrow, actually, man. I turned 55. Double nickel.
Well, man, firstly, thanks for telling me, and secondly, happy birthday.
My last interview at 54.
So a milestone. Well, dude, here's what my last question. You know, when and how are we gonna, you know, crack a couple of beers together next year or in the hopefully not too distant future?
No, I can see it happening in the next 4 or 5 months. Really, the top part of 2024, we're really pushing hard for at least a UK tour. You know, it's at the very top of the agenda of things that we really need to do. I love the new Atheist band is so good. You know, the players are just tremendous, and the show that we just did with Cynic, you know, that tour. If I can bring that over to Europe, I think everyone will really be blown away at the sound of it all. It's just re-energized, and those songs take on a new life with the way that they're being performed now, and it's so fucking fun. And so I look forward to getting there. Believe me, nobody wants to be there more than me. So I'm, you know, our extreme management group is working on it as we speak. So hopefully top part of the year, March, you know, maybe sooner. So fingers crossed. Can't wait to come back over.
I'll hit you up when I'm in the free state of Florida.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, come to paradise. Sarasota, Florida is amazing.
Yeah.
But it is 100 degrees. This summer has been really
the humidity, man. I'm not even though I grew up in a warm country, I'm not built for humidity.
This is off the charts for him here, man. This year is really showed its ass. I mean, it is hot, hot, hot. I can't imagine 10 years from now how much hotter it's going to be. It's going to get to the point where you're not going to be, there's going to be periods of the day where they won't be safe to go out without protective
It'll become
clothing.
like Dubai. It'll be like, in Dubai, if you're there in the summer, that you literally during the day, you can't go out.
Yeah, it's just too much. It kills
Winter
people.
is when people are, going out, hanging out outside and, doing whatever they want. But
Yeah.
dude, I'm so glad to see you doing well and, in
Thank you.
good health and till the
Thanks
dirt
for
is
always giving me a
up.
platform to talk shit. I appreciate
Anytime,
it.
man. Anytime. And we'll definitely do it soon, whether we do it in person or whether, we
I
do
can't
it
wait to cook, to have a drink with you and do it in person. I look forward to you. You've been super supportive and you're super smart and sharp, and I enjoy talking with people like you. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Likewise, my brother. Take care of yourself.
All right, buddy. Cheers.
Bye-bye. Folks, you just listened to The Good, the Bad, the Other by Till the Dirt off their brand new album Outside the Spiral. That band features the great Kelly Shaefer of Atheist, who was my guest, and a big thank you to him for his time. I'll post a link to the Till the Dirt Bandcamp in the description to the podcast, so as always, head over there, buy yourself some music, and let Kelly and the gang know that it was old Jackson at Into the Necrosphere that sent you. Kelly will definitely come back on the show at some point in the hopefully not too distant future. But like I said at the start of the podcast, always great catching up with him. Let's get on to some new music now. And first up, we have the return of arguably Ireland's greatest metal export, Primordial, delivering their first full-length in 5 years with How It Ends. So back when Alan Averill joined me for episode 195 of the podcast, he was quite adamant that How It Ends is not the band's swan song. But I have to say, listening to this record, you can't help but get the impression that in the absence of literal intent to make this their final record, Primordial have almost certainly treated the material as though it were. So while their previous album, 2018's exceptional Exile Amongst the Ruins, had this really reflective and at times very sad, melancholic atmosphere, How It Ends instead feels like a band of grizzled, war-weary warriors affirming their decision to live on their feet before they die on their knees. There's a real palpable sense of grit and rebellion, evident from the moment that the title track's lengthy intro gives way to the meat and potatoes of the song, and that continues through each of the record's 10 tracks, sometimes even spilling into, I would argue, maybe more aggressive territory than Primordial are known for. A great example of this is the fantastic song All Against All. Special mention needs to be made here of the album's production. It's got a really lush, almost analog sound to it, and when you listen to it through a decent set of headphones or, on a decent hi-fi set, something more expensive than some bollocks Bluetooth speaker that you got off a knockoff website somewhere, then it really does come alive in, ways that you would otherwise have missed. I think Alan also sounds absolutely exceptional, really in peak form right now, as far as I'm concerned. And, it's saying something for a guy approaching his 50s, to still have a voice as powerful as his. And it is helped by the fact that he's backed up by an immensely capable band. So for me, How It Ends is absolutely exceptional. It's available right now on Metal Blade Records. And if I'm right, or if my hunch is right, and this does turn out to be Primordial's last stand, then I could not think of a better way to cap a truly glittering career. All right, so next up we have Eloah Burns Out by Trivax, which was released this past Friday on Cult Never Dies Records. I have been debating for a while now how I was going to approach talking about this album, because as much as I don't pretend to be a serious music critic, I also feel like it would be disingenuous to ignore the fact that I consider Cheyenne to be a very close friend. Now, that being said, I also think most of you know me well enough to know that if I didn't enjoy a particular record, even if it was written by, or maybe especially if it was written by a friend of mine, then I would be inclined to just simply not talk about it whatsoever. As it is, my friendship with Cheyenne is a lot like my friendship with the guys from Werewolves, in that it is forged from an interest in their work, and then subsequently we discovered that, maybe we have a little more in common than just a love of blasting devil-inspired noise. And you can trust me when I say that Eloah Burns Out is blasting devil-inspired noise of the very highest quality. Whatever your recollection of Trivax's last full-length record, Sin, which they released back in 2016, might be, you can brush that to one side, because it is demo grade in comparison to what Cheyenne and his co-conspirators have served up here. Azrael and Alpha Predator, the two singles they've released off the record most recently, kick off proceedings at a pretty breakneck pace, occasionally reminding us of the fact that they were at least partly inspired by Dissection, Melakesh, Watain, Destroyer 666, and maybe even early Deicide. I think that's especially true on Apex Predator. But then the album kind of shifts gears a little bit, and by the third track, which is also the album's first instrumental, a song called Silent Contemplation, they really start to elevate material, or the material, into something that feels a lot more unique and kind of takes you on a bit of a journey. Twilight of Death, and the album's biggest highlight, in my opinion, an epic 11-minute plus opus with an Arabic title that ends the record. The Arabic title translates, according to my sources, to "At the End of the World," and I'm not going to attempt to pronounce it because I will make a fool of myself. But yeah, around about there, the album, it kind of really takes a step away from that opening onslaught, and it positions itself as one of the most personal records of 2023, if not one of the best. And I think it's maybe that's enhanced for me by the fact that I've kind of seen or at least been friends with Cheyenne from the inception of some of these songs, and I've seen his journey and his evolution as a human being as well as an artist. So for somebody who's known the man responsible for its creation, it really does fill me with a tremendous amount of pride to see Trivax put out a record like this, and frankly, to put out a record that I think has the potential to really take the metal world by storm. And I am going to prove that right now by playing one of the tracks I just mentioned. This is a song called Twilight of Death. That was Twilight of Death by Trivax off their brand new album Eloah Burns Out. It is available right now on Cult Never Dies Records. The new Primordial record, and I'll play a track by Primordial later on in the show, that is available right now on Metal Blade Records. It's called How It Ends. Both their bandcamps will be waiting for you in the description to the podcast, so head over there and show both those bands some love. Right now, though, if the Grammys, the Rock Hall of Fame, the AMAs, the MTV Music Awards, or any other mainstream trash means anything to you, then grab a hanky for your tears and get to stepping, because this is my weekly news rant.
A roundabout for judgment. And hang them where the world can see.
Kicking off on Metal Storm, the first headline grabbing my attention, KK's Priest have launched a new music video. Frankly, very surprised that old KK had an opportunity to actually record a new album, let alone a music video, considering the fact that he seems to spend the vast majority of his time giving interviews about how Judas Priest done him wrong, and also crying. But it says here, in celebration of the new album's release, KK's Priest revealed another blistering new music video, this time for the track Hymn 66. The clip was directed, filmed, and edited by Charlie Smith. KK Downing says about Hymn 66 and the album release, "It's time to take a look into another world, a world where I was not kicked out of Judas Priest, and where the guys in Judas Priest weren't mean to me." No, actually it says a world where the most powerful have to succumb to enduring their penance for all eternity. So best beware, as those of the highest power may one day gather to summon you as their victim. And be certain there will be no escape, as your presence will be demanded by singing Hymn 66. He is potentially also smoking too much marijuana. But anyway, let's give Hymn 66 a quick listen. So that's not terrible, but I would have cut out both of the leads that we've heard so far. That first lead, about probably 50 seconds in, very short but really atrocious. And then this one that we're listening to right now, it just sounds so trite and like you've heard it 1,000,001 times before. It actually takes away from the fact that actually the main riff, the meat and potatoes of the song, sounds pretty goddamn badass. like that lead, that's a good lead. That's what I would maybe have, or certainly that's what the focus should be. That early stuff, that's fluff. They should have gotten rid of that. The song itself actually is not bad. If you watch this on YouTube, you will have noticed there is an aesthetically pleasing young lady who is who is filmed strutting towards our protagonist, apparently ready to torture him with a cross. Anyway, so not terrible. Not going to set the world on fire either, but cry on, KK, cry on. Resin Tomb are streaming a new tune. It says here, a brand new song from the Australian death metal band Resin Tomb's upcoming full-length Cerebral Purgatory has been unleashed. You can give a listen to the Human Confetti via the YouTube player down under, released by Transcending Obscurity Records. I think you all know my thoughts on that particular label. So let's give it a spin. So this is a group of Australian youngbloods. I think the guys in the band are maybe in a couple of other bands, but no one has put out anything to my knowledge that is particularly noteworthy. I think the other band that the guys are in is called Condemned, and they've also only put out a couple of EPs. This band has put out a couple of EPs and a couple of singles. No full-length yet, so Cerebral Purgatory is going to be their debut full-length. That is exceptionally impressive. This has got a really mature sound. It feels like a band who've kind of found their feet already, which a lot of bands in their debut don't quite do, as we all know. Kind of has hints to me of dissonant death metal bands like Nightmare, Portal, and Altars. But I also hear a lot of that ulcerate atmosphere, that real dark atmosphere that hits you in the subliminals. So I love it. I think it's very, very cool. I'm going to give it 60 more seconds. Superb. And it gets even better for my money when the song speeds up. Really, really enjoyed that. I think that is a fantastic signing by Transcending Obscurity Records, and I think it is yet more proof that right now Australia genuinely does boast a wealth of riches like very, very few other countries does as far as extreme music is concerned. So yeah, Resin Tomb, mark that band on your list of upcoming releases to check out because it is fantastic. Okay, Neck Cemetery. They have released a track from their upcoming record. No idea who they are, but it says Neck Cemetery will release their second studio album, Bring Us the Head, on October the 27th via Reaper Entertainment. Now they unveil the second single, FOAD, which again I can assume means Fuck Off and Die. The song was inspired by the classic movie I Spit on Your Grave and is now available on all streaming platforms. The official video for the song was shot following the album concept under the direction of Ili Jelusik and perfectly captures the spirit of horror classics of the 80s and 90s. Let's listen. So first of all, let's talk about the music video. I actually quite like the aesthetic to it, although I would argue that it looks less like an 80s horror movie, or even certainly a 90s horror movie, and more like an adult movie, which you may have dug up from a mate. Some of us in the early 90s may have found from a mate, and you've dubbed it multiple times over. So yeah, it kind of has more of that kind of vibe to it, at least in terms of the grain to the picture and stuff like that. The song itself, though, pretty terrible. It's a lot. It's better and a lot less cheesy than Glory Hammer. I'll give it that much. But then again, considering just how astonishingly terrible that band is, there is plenty of space for Neck Cemetery to occupy on the shit spectrum, and they certainly do that. This to me has the feel of one of those local bands who, when you first see them at a club, they appear to be really successful, and then you're confused by this until you realize that they seem to bring the same renter crowd with them to the same 2 and 3 clubs that they always play every other month. And whenever they step outside of that comfort zone, or whenever they dare to step outside of that comfort zone, they are very quickly brought down to earth, and they never do it again. They're a battle of the bands band. That's what they sound like to me. And equally, just from that 1 minute and 9 seconds, the lyrics so far have a real JV quality to them. But anyway, let's get back to it.
You won't stop until you're gone. 2 for 2, eye for eye, not sparing anyone. You plead, you beg, but your deeds can't be undone. I curse you, I hound you, won't stop until you're gone. No way I ever will forget the day that changed my life. Rage is burning in my veins, makes me feel alive. You cannot run, cannot hide, you won't escape your fate. You'll end up 6 feet.
I'll tell you what, knowing the sort of questionable career decisions that Chris Adler, formerly of Lamb of God, has made since he left that band, if Neck Cemetery are ever short of a drummer, they might want to look him up, because this sounds like the sort of band he would absolutely be thrilled to be a part of. Okay, Blood Red Throne drop a new track. It says here, Blood Eulogy is the first single from Blood Red Throne's upcoming 11th studio album, Nonagon, which comes out worldwide on January the 26th, 2024 on Soul Cellar Records. Do not hesitate and give it a spin now. So Blade Eulogy comes hot on the heels of their previous single, Latrodectus, which, as those of you that always watch the news rant or listen to the news rant will recall, underwhelmed. And I've got to say, this does not sound like they're going to be bucking that trend anytime soon. There's nothing bad here per se, but to me, it sounds like 1,000 other B-tier death metal bands. Like, they know how to play their instruments, the production's pretty good. Maybe a little anemic in my view, but it's decent. But as I said, there are like 1,000 other B-tier death metal bands vying for your time and attention in a world where Autopsy, Dying Fetus, and Cannibal Corpse released records in the same month, all of which were fucking fantastic. Not to mention that there are a bunch of sensational death metal records released by bands that are of lower profile that also will probably take your time up before you ever listen to Blood Red Throne. I might be wrong, but to me it really sounds like the band has progressed no further than than where they were at the last time that I paid any attention to them, and that was 2003's Affiliated with the Suffering. And the only reason I paid attention to them at the time was because they featured a ex-Emperor member. And so I was kind of expecting something more along the lines of Zyklon, which I absolutely loved. But yeah, this is not doing it for me. I'd give them 1+. Their new vocalist, Sindre Johnson, sounds pretty capable. Outside of that, I can't imagine myself getting particularly excited about the new Blood Red Throne record. Okay, folks, let's move on. Decembre Noir have got a new track streaming online. It says here, Decembre Noir's newly released music piece, Your Sunset, My Sunrise, is the title track and another taste off the group's forthcoming studio album. It is set to land in stores in 2 weeks, thus October the 13th, through Life Force Records. Let's give it a listen. So a couple of weeks ago, we listened to the first single off this record, which was a song called Against the Daylight. And I really quite like that. I'm liking this one too. Although sitting here listening to it, I kind of feel like if you were in a particularly salty mood, you could probably lob many of the same criticisms at this band that I just did at Blood Red Throne. I mean, again, there is nothing here that we've never heard before. But I would say the difference to me is in the execution. There's something that I feel, maybe the word is authenticity, but there's just something, I feel more of an emotional connection to this than I did to the Blood Red Throne track. Like it just, the way that they're doing it, or the way they're delivering their music just seems to have a bit more passion. It's just a bit of something that I can't quite put my finger on, but it makes the music infinitely more palatable. So let's get back to it.
You don't know your limits.
I've got to say, I'm usually pretty critical of most melodic death metal bands, but I'm really enjoying that. The one thing to comment though, the lyrics that we just heard on that piece, I could hear him singing "You don't know your limits, but I can find forgiveness." Kind of sounds like something that your girlfriend would say to you if you got too boozed up the night before. But yeah, not bad stuff from Decembre Noir. Let's move on, folks. Exodus is writing a new album. It says here, in a new interview with STL Tones, Exodus guitarist Gary Holt confirmed that the band has been hard at work writing new material for their next album. The follow-up to 2021's Persona Non Grata is expected to be released sometime in 2024, and it will be their debut on Napalm Records, who signed Exodus last June. I loved Persona Non Grata, an album that really caught me by surprise, and I am to this day astounded that for whatever reason Jack Gibson's interview is the one that got me the most thumbs downs on YouTube in the podcast history, more so than all of my more controversial guests, Nas, Brock, Katie, Cheyenne, everybody. So yeah, go figure. But either way, it was great having him on the podcast. Hopefully he or somebody else from the band will come on the show when they do their new record, and hopefully that new record goes down a similar track to Persona Non Grata. Okay, next up we've got Bewitcher with Manifesting Darkness. It says, as part of their newly announced compilation album Deep Cuts and Shallow Graves, due out on November the 17th, 2023, via Century Media Records, Bewitcher shared a new single called Manifesting Darkness. This output is a massive 17-track compilation of the band's original demos, including rare and previously unreleased material, all remastered, as well as 2 brand new studio tracks. The track they've got here is called Manifesting Darkness, as I said. Let's give it a spin. So when you're from Portland, Oregon, as these guys are, I mean, I suppose that you really can only sing about the things that you see around you every day as you walk the streets of that God-forsaken town. Darkness, disease. But on the plus side, Bewitcher's daily burden is apparently of benefit to us all, because whatever inspired them to write that gets my thumbs up. It's I really like it. Nice blend of punk, thrash, black metal. It's it kind of has a more believable old school sensibility, I think, than a lot of bands who attempt the same style. So yeah, I think it's very, very enjoyable indeed. I'm not really hugely familiar with their previous stuff. Certainly not to the point where I would get excited about them releasing a bunch of demos and things like that, but definitely a band that I will look into more in the future. So let's give it another 60 seconds.
Magic swells in the sky, out of control, escaping from my mind, too late to turn, no going back, a voice speaks to me, I knew I manifested darkness. Last of the night I feel malicious energy in the air, charged by a force I can't
when I have to remind myself to check the time because because I may let the song run through to its conclusion when I'm doing one of these reacts, you know that it's a good tune. So yeah, that is what I just had to do there, and that is a big thumbs up for the guys in Bewitcher. Okay, next up we've got Autopsy, who are unveiling a new single called Throat Saw. It says here, in the wake of their upcoming full-length onslaught, Ashes, Organs, Blood and Crypts, Autopsy now offer a new track in preview called Throat Saw. The new album will be set free on the 27th of October 2023 via Peaceful Records. Got to say, it's a pretty quick turnaround from their previous album, because their previous album, Morbidity Triumphant, came out last year, and it did fly under the radar for me a little bit because there was so much other good stuff that came out at the time that I just didn't quite pay attention to it. But I know that many of the Legion were big fans, and so it would be remiss of me not to give Throat Saw a quick listen, so we shall do that right now. Autopsy for me is another great example of a band who've been around for, literally decades now, and they are still producing music at a very, very high level. It's not quite on the level of Severed Survival. I mean, this is no Charred Remains, but it's still really enjoyable to listen to. That guitar solo was fucking twisted and nasty. The vocal sound, like somebody has taken a cheese grater to the guy's larynx. The music is crusty and, mean sounding. I really like this. Very, very much indeed. They are also very short, sharp, and to the point, because that song is only 2.5 minutes long, so I'm going to stop it there. But definitely, Ashes, Organs, Blood, and Crypts is a record I will look forward to. And I think I should go back and check out that Morbidity Triumphant. I think Sheriff Mike Scandado especially was a big fan of it, and he's usually got some pretty good recommendations. All right, Forted are streaming a new track. It says here, Icelandic metal trio Forted are streaming a visualizer video to the new single, Rotten Arfur, translated as A Rotten Legacy, and it's taken off their forthcoming studio album, Narcissus. The latter comes out on October the 13th. Forted, of course, were the producers of one of potentially the most ridiculous music videos I've ever seen, and I lived through an era where the sight of grown men strolling strolling in a relaxed fashion through a forest whilst wearing corpse paint and grimacing at skeletons is or was considered cool. So it shouldn't, or it shouldn't, and it didn't take away from the music. I still think that their music was, or the music on that particular song was absolutely fucking fantastic. So I am looking forward to hearing this. And again, kind of like Australia, Iceland, when it comes to black metal in particular, is just completely and utterly oozing with brilliance. There's a bit of a Rotting Christ vibe to the song, especially when it kicks in, and that's by no means a bad thing. But it's just an influence that I definitely notice. Yeah, I think it's very good. I like the fact that they're singing in their native tongue. I think it sounds really, really cool. They seem to have a very meticulous approach to riff writing. That was the case with the previous single as well. And one of the things that I like about them is they kind of seem to, they'll repeat a pattern and make you believe you're going down a certain path, and then they'll just do a slight swerve. But I like the fact that it keeps you guessing, keeps you engaged. And then aside from Rotting Christ, obviously you've got everything from Maiden to Mayhem tossed into the mix here. So yeah, very, very good stuff. Top notch in my view. Will it knock Altari off the perch as far as the best album I've heard from any Icelandic bands this year? Probably not. That Altari album was something quite extraordinary. I've had quite a few of you guys asking me what my favorite albums of the year was. I haven't started the intense process of calibrating the list yet, but I will do another top 30. I may actually do another I may do another live stream next year, but I'm going to do it the same as I did last year. I've decided 3 parts. Counting down my 30 to 21, 20 to 11, and then 10 down to the best album of the year. I'd like to, ideally, if he's available, make it an institution that I have Mike on for the top 10, and then we'll see what we do for the others. Yeah, definitely cool stuff there. Let's give it another 60 seconds or so. My strong advice to them would also be to stick to visualizers. No more of the no more of the music videos. No more of the narrative-driven music videos, because they look like a bad episode of a soap opera with people pretending to be Vikings, and it undermines the level of talent that these guys have. That's my point. Okay, Therion, new album set for December release. The third part of Therion's trilogy, Leviathan 3, is ready to hit the streets on the 15th of December 2023 via Napalm Records. Check out additional details and the video for the first streaming single, Twilight of the Gods Below. This is a band I've not had any interest in for a long time, but it is the news rant, so why the hell not? Let's give it a listen. So the last Therion record that I actually really enjoyed, and I genuinely loved this, was the Lemuria Sirius B double album that they put out back in 2004, and then after that they completely lost me. The last time I even bothered to listen to a song by them was when an album called Beloved Antichrist came out in 2018, and that was so diabolically rubbish. If you had told me that it was a Weird Al record, I would have believed you. This so far is less dreadful than Beloved Antichrist, but it's by no means what I'd consider my vibe. That being said, I'm willing to give it another 60 seconds. Laurie Lewis is the name of the opera singer that you hear there, and I got to say, she's very talented, but I wouldn't want her doing her singing within 100 yards of my home. The music is better than really anything I've heard by this band since Lemuria Sirius B, but yeah, it's still not my vibe. And I would say that they often, the problem with Therion is that they too often fall into the trappings of what Manowar would call false metal. The other thing, just as a side note, Therion used to be called Blitzkrieg, and you can only imagine how well that would have worked out for them in 2023. Were they still named as such? We've got some sad news. Hecate in Thrones former vocalist John Kennedy passed away. He was also the bass player for Cradle of Filth at a period in time. He was 46 years old. They don't say it in the article, but my understanding from people I know who knew him is that he passed away in a car accident. And 46 years old, man, is just way too young for anyone, to be taken from this mortal coil. So, I'm not going to sit here pretending that I'm the biggest Hecate Enthroned fan, because I'm not. But that you don't have to be a fan of a band to look at a situation and at least feel some degree of human empathy. And my thoughts go out to John's family, to John's friends. If anyone happens to be listening to this, for what it's worth, I know he will have left behind a a very impressive legacy, and certainly his performances will be something that people can cherish long after he's passed on. But yeah, very sad news that. Okay, let's move on. The next bit of news grabbing my attention. We've got a Sladeer dropping a new single here, but I think I actually listened to this last week. So I might give this a skip, and we may head over to the Democrats' Guide to Rock Music. So let's do that. Okie doke. First up, AC/DC to open official high voltage dive bar in Indio, California. Actually, that wouldn't be too bad. I can't see myself going to California again at any time soon. If I do go to the States, it's definitely going to be Texas. But yeah, an AC/DC themed bar, I'm sure will be fun. Ex-Guns N' Roses guitarist Bumblefoot on Chinese Democracy. It was a deep album with a lot of layers. It was deep, all right. It was deep in the way that the long drop in your great-grandparents' backyard was deep to mask the smell. And by the way, I truly still believe that the next Guns N' Roses record will be similarly abysmal. Wonderful news. Stryper's Michael Sweet has launched a melodic rock project called Soul Driver, so he's found a way to suck even harder than he does on Stryper's music. Disturbed's Summer 2023 Take Back Your Life tour grossed more than 17 million. Again, amazing considering the fact that they haven't written 17 minutes worth of good music. It says here, according to Billboard.com, Disturbed's Take Back Your Life Summer 2023 tour grossed $17.4 million, which is a serious bit of money, and sold 336,000 tickets. The band averaged 11,573 tickets sold per show, up from 6,901 in 2019 and 4,404 in 2016. The average ticket price for the Take Back Your Life tour was $51. Disturbed's biggest headlining concert ever happened on September the 2nd at Ruoff Home Mortgage Music Center in Noblesville, Indiana, where the band drew more than 20,000 fans. Do they have a new album out? Oh yeah, they do apparently. Released in November 2022, Disturbed's latest album, Divisive, was recorded early last year with producer Drew Falk. I haven't heard that, but I can assume it's terrible. That being said, like I said, those are some pretty damn impressive numbers. What else have we got here that is in any way interesting? Roger Waters rips newly released documentary as flimsy, unapologetic piece of propaganda. Speaking of propaganda, this past weekend, I took my daughter to see the Ascot Hi-Fi show, which was absolutely fantastic. The propaganda was to come later, though, because we then went to dinner, and after dinner I said, let's go watch a movie. Now, she's 9 years old, so Saw X was off the cards, and that left us with The Creator, which is the new movie by Gareth Edwards, also responsible for Rogue One and Godzilla. Both of those terrible movies should have provided red flags, but again, given the fact that we were limited as far as our options are concerned, we watched it. The movie, as it turns out, and this is coming from somebody who, as all of you know, is a huge fan of South Korean horror, Asian cinema in general, but the movie, as it turns out, is literal communist propaganda from start to finish. I've never seen anything so heavy-handed in its agenda since the last Candyman, and frankly, this actually makes that Candyman remake seem subtle by comparison. The US, the West, are presented from start to finish as literally evil incarnate. And then there's this fictitious new country called New Asia, which is kind of offered to us as a sentimental, empathetic, brilliant, reasonable, beautiful alternative. I mean, it's really fucking insane. So, Legion, take it from me. I will save you 2 hours and 15 minutes of your life. Do not watch that fucking nonsense whatsoever. Dave Mustaine scolds security for bullying a fan at Megadeth's Bloomington concert. You guys are punks. Let's check out the video for this one.
Stop. Dude,
cool. Hey! Fucking stop hitting that guy!
So you can kind of in the corner of the screen see what looks like a bit of a scuffle, but I mean, it doesn't look to me like any punches are being thrown. It just seems like, you know, somebody might have been a little drunk, might have gotten a little out of hand, a little unruly, and the security guards had to calm them down. So, but naturally, Dave stepped in to save the day, and probably what's cut off from the video is he was heard to say, after that little tirade, "Stop that or I'll make you suffer some of my most lethal Jitkin Doe moves. I may have spared James Hetfield's life, but you sons of bitches won't be so lucky." All right, let's do one more and then let us wrap it up. I see there's a performance trailer for a Black Sabbath ballet. Why Black Sabbath has to be turned into a ballet, fuck alone knows, but I'm sure there'll be a couple of people that go there and feel all cultured and special when they come out. There was one piece of news that I wanted to share, and it is sad news. Although before we get to that, Thy Art is Murder recruits Aversion's crown singer Tyler Miller. I more than ever am 1000% sure that I am hearing CJ McMahon on that album. And just the kind of pure logic of how long it would have taken them to get the masters across for the vinyl to be pressed and the CDs to be done, all of that sort of thing. They could not possibly have re-recorded that record or re-recorded the vocals like the week before the release. So it just sounds, it doesn't pass the smell test. But here's the actual news. And folks, I absolutely hate to be the bearer of bad, a really terrible news, but it's my sad duty to inform every one of the Legion that Otep Shemaiah, the great Otep Shemaiah, might in fact not be making another album. Now, many of you will know her as the writer of as many as 0 great songs, as well as the owner of the phrase "the real ones," which she has coined and uses for her fans. She also famously cancelled an entire tour because she wouldn't be able to enact strict COVID protocols at every show. She very publicly attempted to feud with the Butcher Babies, only to be blown off and treated like a child. And then she proved just how brave and rebellious she is by releasing a song where she attacked Donald Trump. Sadly, though, she is robbing us of future displays of such bravery, as well as being a musical genius, all because apparently of numerology. So she says here that apparently her new record is album number 9, and because album number 9 represents the last single digit, that means this is the end. Thank fuck for that. And on that note, my friends, it is the news rant wrapped up for this week. That brings us to the end of another thrilling installment of Into the Necrosphere. Next week, I am back with my friend Matt Prizzo of Conspiracy X, Sick, and Spells of Torment. Make sure that you are there for that episode, and then make sure that you start getting your brown pants ready for the episode 200 of Into the Necrosphere. Who will my guest be? You will find out in 2 weeks' time. Until then, sit back and enjoy the soothing sounds of Primordial with a track off their new album, and whatever it is that you're doing, wherever it is that you are, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you bad motherfuckers again next week.